Oh, what's up, Philadelphia sports fans? Welcome to the War Room. We are War Room Philly. I am Anthony Pinto. It's good to be on right after a win, as things have been pretty dark recently. That Alec Bohm walk-off hit was much needed. My notes that I'm writing down in like the 6th, 7th inning are not too good, but man, we feel a lot better. Phillies come back down 5-0 against the Diamondbacks on the verge of getting swept. And they come back with, again, a big win, 6-5, bases loaded hit by Bohm there in the 10th inning. Just needed to make a productive out, and as soon as that ball left the bat there in the 10th, you knew you were at least winning that game, and it ends on a hit for him instead of a sac fly, or for whatever it's worth. But yeah, that is, I see out there in chat, Joe, that is a much needed win. Big win headed into the series against the Braves. And just for Philadelphia, we needed a win. It's just been bad. Obviously, we're still reeling from the Sixers, and we can talk any and all Sixers points today, continuing the offseason talk. But it's really tonight, or today, this afternoon, will be mostly a Phillies show. We could talk Eagles, but I just wanted to kind of get this, do a little quick, not quick, but a little post-game hit. And let me fix this up a little bit. Setup. There we go. But again, it's tough because all my notes here are not too good. In fact, not the last thing I wrote, but one of the last things I wrote was Trey Turner looks absolutely lost at the plate. Sorry, I could have sworn I turned my ringer off. But yeah, I just realized the South Park toilet theme probably just played through. It's Jamie's new text tone. If you know, you know. But I wrote that Turner looks absolutely. Now, what I'd like to do is nerd out and look at his swings from the beginning of this game and that last at bat. Because the one prior to that, he dove. Oh my God, I'm remembering it in my head and you can see the pain. He dove out, like just flailed out at least 2 pitches that were nowhere near the strike zone. Looked totally lost at the plate. And I got to be honest with myself and with you guys earlier, I was nerding out and I was watching Trey Turner highlights from the World Baseball Classic. And what I saw, the difference between what I saw, and look, I'm no major leaguer. The big thing that I could see was, everything, I when I looked today, like I watched his stuff around 11 o'clock this morning. I watched some at-bats and highlights from the World Baseball Classic. And I'm looking, I'm like, man, he's really spread out. And so I expected today that, maybe his arms are a little... Everything still looked pretty sound as far as his pre-pitch. But what I did see is when it's almost like a golf swing, too. His front foot, he was opening up. And he was kind of where your front foot you want to land, kind of equal with your shoulders. What he was doing was he would do this with his front foot, and because of that, it would open his shoulders up, and that's why I think he's looking a little lost, is that front, it's his plant foot in his stance. That's what I found. Again, from today, watching his at-bats today live, in comparison to watching his World Baseball Classic highlights. Again, I'd like to go back and rewatch that last at-bat. I kind of just yelled a lot, got my cat confused, and then I had to push him out of the room and just go on. But matter of fact, here you go, chat. If you guys can send me a clip in chat, drop me a link of that Trey Turner home run. Maybe Joe, hop on Twitter right now, or and even if you just at me in it and tell me you did it, I'll pull it up and we can kind of go through it. But that's what I saw, and I'd like to hopefully see that in that last one, his front foot and his shoulders are much more square. And if he's doing that, then I think we'll be back, because Trey Turner, up until that last at bat, has seemingly seemed lost at the plate, and we need to get him going. We can't have another like Castellanos, where your big acquisitions just having a stinker year. Everyone in this lineup has to contribute this year to make up for the loss of Rhys Hoskins. What up, Murph? I was talking about how he looks lost with my dad. That 7th inning, yeah, that's the one I was talking about in particular, Murph. If you go back and watch that one, first off, that one it's like everything that's wrong with him right now. His front foot was out, his arms were out, his eyes were out. Like, everything was off. But even before that, I was noticing his plant foot. That was, to me, what could be different. And again, hopefully this big hit for him, and moving forward, we get a little bit more out of Trey Turner, because we need that. Other things that this team needs right now is their starting pitching to get going. My first note here for this Phillies game, and again, I started, keep in mind I wrote these in mid-game when they were losing 5-0. But this is thoughts that I have been thinking for a few weeks now, but I've been such in Sixers mode that I've just been kind of going off the cuff when it comes to Phillies, so I wanted to actually write down some thoughts for the Phillies for today's show. And my main thing, and again, hopefully now that they walked off and this win can change things, it's different, but when I look at this team and then when I see them struggling, I'm looking at them, I'm like, holy, it looks like this team needs like a bye week. But you don't get that in baseball, and you're not going to get that until July with the All-Star break. It's just like their starting pitchers have not given it to you this season. The relief pitchers have been up and down. You know, Alvarado is looking phenomenal, and then he goes on the shelf. Kimbrel has probably been your one reliever who has been at least consistent. Maybe not, S tier, but he's at least been consistent in A or B tier. Ranger looks like something maybe off still, yeah. And, you gotta remember, like, with Ranger and with a lot of these guys, it feels like, it feels in a little bit of a way that the World Baseball Classic, and I've said this a few times before, but it feels like having so many players play in this World Baseball Classic has kind of hurt the Phillies as a team, because as a team, fundamentally, they're just not there when it comes to fielding, when it comes to think about the base running stuff. It's sort of gone away, but it's just manifested itself into other things. It's fielding, it's throwing. This team has not looked like a team that can win a pennant like they did last year yet. Now, we said this around this time last year as well. But last year you had a ripcord you could pull, and that was firing Joe Girardi. No one wants to fire Rob Thompson right now, and by no means am I here to suggest that. So with that, this team has to figure it out. Why are we playing bad baseball? Why can we not do the simple things? And it's very reminiscent of the Sixers, where it's like, can we just do the basics and then let's work our way out? But in my opinion, us as fans will all settle down the instant we see, regardless of wins and losses, we just need to see fundamental baseball for stretch or stretches to start feeling good or better about this team. But either way, again, today's a good winning games like this helps. It helps all of our psyche. It makes this show a little bit more enjoyable to deal with. And now it just, again, as fans, we're like, well, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see if this team's got anything until, you know, we're not going to get overly excited until we start seeing that consistency in those fundamentals. So yeah, again, you got that. And now it just comes down to you're gonna verse the Braves. We know that. And where does this team go from here? I think this team needs to make a trade or two sooner rather than later. And now it's getting to June. Now you can start finding teams that are willing to deal. So if you guys remember, you know, in April when we were all hot and bothered, especially coming off the Reese thing, you got to get a first baseman. Now it's time to ramp up those talks. Now the CJ Crones and you know, it's time to start ramping up those names. And it's going to be, how does this team find a starter? How does this team find a first baseman? And how does this team continue to find their groove? And it comes down to, I really hope to God that the Phillies don't, like, the Phillies can't sit here and think our solution at first base is Bryce Harper, because that still leaves a hole in your lineup. Like, forget defensively, you need, unless you're going to go out there and find an outfielder. But in my opinion, you have the DHs here on this team. You need a first baseman, and you need that first base bat in your lineup. And if Bryce can play in the field, I want him to play in the outfield, and I'm willing to wait. But that's where he's needed. Because you need to get Schwarber. You need to get Schwarber on the, you know, you need him to DH more than not. And we tend to forget that, you know, that's really what Schwarber was signed here, to be the DH. And again, this is by no means me, you know, knocking Schwarber, but he looks like a DH when he's playing left field. He's got no range. He's got no arm. So where Bryce Harper is needed most is out there in right field, so that you can swap out Castellanos, you can get those guys into the DH role and kind of improve your fielding by having Bryce out there. And again, I'm willing to wait. My bigger thing is my point here is I'm looking bigger picture, and I want to look at this roster. And what does this roster need? This roster needs a first baseman. Derek Hall was recently put on the 60-day DL, Murph, so he's still a ways away. And again, now with it was going to be a prove it year for Derek Hall, right? Yeah, CJ Crone. That was the first. That's actually the only name I've mentioned so far, as far as trades go. So I'm absolutely on board with you there, Nick. 200%. But the Derek Hall thing, I'm pretty sure he was just put on. Pretty sure he was just moved to the 60-day DL. Now they could retrograde that, but it still means he's a little bit ways away. 3 days ago. Oh wait, no, maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Because this is Phillies Nation. This is a few days ago. You guys can see what I'm looking at. Here we go. Derek Hall. So his status is out for 2 months. Um, Great progress since undergoing the surgery in mid-April. He's hitting on the field on the track machine. He's pretty close to a rehab stint, but it says here his status is he's out for at least 2 more months, I guess. Um, so, and again with Derek Hall, you are going to use this time to kind of assess what you needed and had in Derek Hall, right? Now he's kind of missed out on that time, and in my opinion, when he's back, he's a bench piece. And in an ideal world, he's a bench piece, and you're not, the Phillies still go out and get a CJ Cron or someone else, This is not as it's always good when you're trying to look for lists and you get pictures and all right. But yeah, we'll it's I think as far as the Derek Hall and the first base situation goes, now you just look to make that roster deeper if and when Derek Hall returns. But the Phillies got to go out there and make a move as far as first basemen go, and they got to find some pitching depth because right now they have none of it. They're in trouble as far as they've got nothing from Bailey Falter this season. He's been designated. And, the Andrew Painter thing obviously has hurt this team. Ranger Suarez going down in spring training has hampered this team and has left them stretched thin very early on. But, this is where the lack of depth in your minor league once again rears its ugly head. And, we've seen this year in and year out with the Phillies where their lack of their just inability to produce major leaguers, even just adequate major leaguers. They don't have to be all-stars, just people that are serviceable. My favorite word, that's the word I was looking for. You're failing to produce that, and that catches up with the team, and here we are, and it's time to deal with that. So in my opinion now for the Phillies, look, we all know the things. We've talked for 20 minutes now on the field, what they could do. Improve fundamentals. That's it. You know what I mean? Like, the talent will catch up, but your step one is play fundamental baseball, and you've yet to do that. Okay, the base running has stopped, but now the fielding seems to start up. It's like one thing after another, and this team still hasn't played a heady type of baseball, and we need to see that. We need to see a team with a brain and working as a unit. When we see that, I think we'll start seeing some win streaks. And again, it'll come when you get some starting pitching. And in my opinion, as much as I've just ranted and raved about a first baseman, I think that is probably the move that'll happen first, is you got to go out there and get something as far as the starting pitcher goes. Something to make sure that you do not run your bullpen down, because right now, and again, goes back to this team looks like they need a bye week. Right now, you're in May, you're going into June, and your bullpen is gassed. The inconsistency of Sir Anthony Dominguez, the injuries just top to bottom, you had to put Connor Brogdon out there. He had 3 walks in an inning. You had to put him back out there. That shows me that you're thin and that you're just relying. Well, he's expendable, so we're going to, make him prove it, which I agree with. He's sort of in the Hector Neris role. Remember Neris' last year? It's like he never said no, and that was an admirable trait. There was people, he can't go today. Neris always available. And you need that when you suck. So, Brogdon went out there, and I think he may have even earned the win today. No, Kimbrel did. I'm sorry. That's right. By the way, speaking of Kimbrel, that reminds me of the inconsistencies at umpire today. It seemed like homeboy back there had a tenuous grasp on the MLB rulebook. It's one thing when you fuck up the strike zone. We're used to that. It's humans. Okay. Now, it's another thing when there's balls at the fucking ankles that are being called strikes, whether it's for or against my team. It's not a good look for the MLB. But when you, in that at-bat in the 10th inning, I already forgot, maybe it was Rui, I forget the dude's name that was at the plate, the left-handed hitter. He should have been thrown out for a pitch time violation, but I guess he got a second warning. I don't know what he was arguing about then the whole time that caused this giant delay. 3 umpires are talking, and they all say, who the hell knows, because by the rule book, he should have been thrown out. Instead, what happens is they go back in, and Kimbrel steps off the mound once they get engaged, and then he gets charged a ball. I get that the pitch timer was a necessary evil, but it is June and the MLB still hasn't figured it out. It feels like maybe this was rushed. It feels like there needs to be a few extra seconds added to that pitch clock. Otherwise, again, as a fan, it's made my life at least a little bit more enjoyable. Until these moments happen, that's a 1 o'clock game today that ends it in extra innings. It still ended at 4 today? A game that was, 6-5 and an ugly pitching kind of game. But man, and Kruk will let you know. It's to the point where I'm almost at times I'm all right, Kruk, these guys do have to remember they're selling a product too. And if you're just constantly bitching on air about the product not being good, it's not good for the casual. MLB just broke their attendance record, so that's all they can. Look, as viewers, it makes our experience better. And until times like this happens, it makes our experience better. I just tend to think that there's too many inconsistencies, and it's like they're just kind of going with it on the fly, and it's not a good look. That's all I'll say. I've came along to all of the rules. I don't want to. I like baseball too much to just bitch. Oh, we need to bring the shift back. I might be the only one. I will say, and I'm going to continue to do it. I hate the innings. The man on second. I call it the ghost runner rule. I hate the man on second in the 10th and in the extra innings. I still hate that. But outside of that, I've come along to pretty much all of the rules. I just think that with the pitched clock, they really need to figure this out. You can't have rules written and then umpires just being like, oh, fuck it, it's a field goal. But yeah, I mean, Just getting back to it. With this Phillies team, it'll be kind of now is again in the coming weeks. Hopefully, you'll start feeling that stove heat up, and maybe the CJ Crones, and maybe there's some pitching names that this team's got to start finding. In my opinion, at least two pieces. You need a starter and you need a first baseman. If you can get, maybe a reliever, maybe even just a quad A starter as some extra depth, all the better. But this team needs at least two pieces to fill some voids. Rhys Hoskins is, that bat and that presence in the lineup has certainly been missed. We can all kind of agree on that, I would hope. Even the Rhys haters got to be like, all right, well, they're missing something. So yeah, and again, just I don't want to kind of just keep spinning my wheels over and over and again. We've been talking about the Phillies for about a half hour now, so we'll kind of move into a little bit of Sixers talk. I do got a little bit of Sixers talk in mind, and if there's any more Phillies talk out there, by all means, comment and let me know. And I mean, it can be Eagles as well. If you got a Flyers comment, they're playing an outdoor game. Why, I don't know. But cool. That's about most I can say about the Flyers. And again, the Eagles, we're starting to see some Jalen Carter and Eagles green. That's looking good. Nolan Smith signed. But, if there's any Eagles talk that you guys want to get in there, by all means, do that too. But, we'll kind of start the free flow from Phillies into a little bit of Sixers as far as I'm planned, but I can always move with chat as needed. So kind of again, just to wrap up the Phillies talk, it now, hopefully with this Turner home run, he starts to turn things around. We need to see more out of him. As far as Castellanos goes, he's having himself a pretty good season, but we need a little more power from Castellanos. But again, I think as far as this team goes, we need fundamentals, and we need to be hitting for power more. I think there's really the big problem with this team is you see the averages are all there, but they're kind of a team that's built to be hitting more home runs, and they're not doing it quite yet. So I think as it comes June, Schwarber's going to heat up, and Charlie Manuel, it's in season, you know what I'm saying? So hopefully, as the weather starts to heat up a little bit, so do these bats. Because if you look at everyone's individual numbers, the averages are all decent, but it's the lack of power that right now is hurting this lineup. So between as a team from top to bottom, offense and defense, fundamentals. We talked about all the other things as far as base running, fielding. We've talked about that. Now it's the approach at the plate. I mean, it doesn't feel like far too often these hitters are down 0-2. That's, again, fundamentals, and I think that this team's just going to start to hopefully they start to find their stride, and we kind of start to see a little bit more of the finished product that we think that this team can be. I've seen Carter Hart trade. I mean, at this point, everybody should be on the trade block for the Flyers. But my stance on the Flyers is Carter Hart is the one player that's not tradable. I would amuse pretty much anything else because I haven't. Maybe I'm missing someone, but I don't think that there's any difference makers on that Flyers roster except for Carter Hart. I keep difference makers. I build around difference makers, especially NHL goalies who have much longer of shelf lives than a lot of other positions, especially, I'm talking in all of sports, but especially in the NHL. You see goaltenders sort of hit their like second peak in like their 30s too. So as far as I'm concerned, Carter Hart's the only player I want to build around. Everyone else is expendable. But the Flyers I think the Flyers need to change their logo and their colors. Because everyone loves to bash Comcast ownership, rightfully so. But let's not pretend that Ed Snyder was any better. Because I had people telling me, oh, this team's never going to win. I'm telling you a quote. This isn't a belief of mine, but I had more than one person tell me that this team will never win anything as long as Ed Snyder's alive. So let's not act like ownership wasn't the problem beforehand either. The Flyers have struggled to find any sort of identity since the salary cap has been put in place in the NHL. And that is a long time ago. We're going back to, what, early 2000s? Maybe even before that? (2005 and 6 season). So yeah, in my opinion, and when you think about it, that's the last time this team. That was like the 2005. That was right before that was the Jeremy Roenick run. You lost to the Leafs in what, 04 maybe? After that, the Flyers were irrelevant. You had 2010, that was a cute run, and you had the bubble, that was a cute run. But did they ever follow those seasons up with fucking anything at all? No, because what have the Flyers done every fucking year since I have existed as a human being? They have just chased the playoffs. Not since 1997 has this team been a contender for a number one seed. In 2010, when they made the Stanley Cup, they were a 7th seed, and they made that 7th seed on the last day of the regular season. The bubble was cute. Yeah, they had a run then, and that was when they were, a 1 seed then, but that was weird. I'm not going to say that those seasons didn't count, but that was weird. And what did they do with it? Nothing. What did they do the next season after that? Collapsed. Why? Because they just want to make the playoffs. Stop trying to make the playoffs. Start trying to build a 1 seed. I don't think the Flyers will ever be good again. I honestly, and I am not that type of person. I think they need to change their name. Forget ownership. Sure, sell the team too. And if another team comes in, change the fucking name. Because every idiot that sees that orange and black, they Broad Street bullies, and they want to go back to 1974. That style of hockey has long been dead. And so are the Flyers. Speaking of dead teams, the Sixers. When it comes to teams that get my blood pressure raised just as much of the Flyers really don't even do it for me anymore. Like the Flyers, they're not even on my radar. I will talk to them with you guys. I stay educated because of you guys. But I have watched, and we talk, Murph, if you're still out there, you'll know. In the group thread, we're like, we all have watched more games NHL-wise in these playoffs than we have all year. But again, now we're moving into the Sixers. Just a little head coach talk as we can kind of keep rounding out that boat until it's sailed. I am going to continue to push. I want Nick Nurse here. I want Nick Nurse, or maybe, I know my wild card is Jay Wright. Because I want someone here who is an X's and O's coach. When you looked at anytime Doc Rivers spoke to or about the team, like, Doc Rivers never educated me as a fan on the game of basketball. I want a coach that's going to come in here and educate me as the fan. Even Brett Brown let you in on the game every now and then. You're like, oh, this guy understands defense. I can learn defense listening to this guy talk. All Doc Rivers did, he was kind of like the dad, you know? Come on, let's go! Play defense! Show your threes! Let's go! That's all he ever did. Well, fucking tell them what they need to do to make the three. Draw up a fucking play, dude. Do something more than this. Like, it seemed like Doc Rivers was just a motivator. And I think what this team needs is an X's and O's guy that's going to just come in here and draw a play out. Come in here and show Embiid, hey man, look, if you can get down into the post from certain angles, we can get certain players different looks. And, you know, you don't always have to be up by the fucking elbow playing for pick and rolls with James Harden. You guys can do more than, you know, we can run more than one play the entire game. There's 48 minutes of basketball to be played. Now, with that, you know, I've given my thoughts on who I want for the coach and what style I want. The big one again for me, I'm going to go Nick Nurse 1. I've seen Frank Vogel's name out there. Again, that's another guy that I think understands X's and O's. You saw with that Pacers team, he was kind of building that team up to be something. Then he got his chance on a roster to win, and he showed that he could do it. And then, you know, who knows what happened afterwards. But, you know, here's the one name that will piss me off. D'Antoni. Or JJ Redick. What up, Russ? I don't have strong coaching opinions. I've heard D'Antoni. I don't know about your. I mean, I trust it. I've seen a lot of reports as far as the D'Antoni thing. Nurse and I forget who else he said was tied for second. Probably Frank Vogel, Russ. Just by what I'm seeing. But let's see. Let me look up who you got. I'll find your tweet that you're talking about. Yes, I'm not seeing that exact one, but I do see he retweeted stuff about the Suns have narrowed their head coaching stat to 5 finalists: Nick Nurse, Frank Vogel, Doc Rivers, Kings assistant Jordi Fernandez, and Suns assistant Kevin Young. Nurse looms prominently in Phoenix and Philadelphia searches too. Excuse me. Overpay LeBron to play and coach? No. So, I saw that the Sixers are actually odds-on favorites to land LeBron if he leaves LA. Look, I'm by no means I'm not going to hate on LeBron's game. The Sixers need shooters, man. But here's what if they brought in LeBron, he would give them that dog, that championship mentality. Now, if you are bringing in LeBron, then Frank Vogel is not coming back, because I'm pretty sure LeBron's the one that got Frank Vogel fired. But I have seen that, and it's a little interesting, but in my opinion, what you gotta feel, You got to fill this team out with shooters, and we're still trying to figure out a point guard to come in. If we're just shipping James Harden out, which a lot of Philadelphia does, not me personally. For the record, I want to keep James Harden. I know that might feel like a hot take anymore in today's town, but I don't want Kyrie Irving because I don't want an anti-Semitic flat earther on my team who has gone everywhere he's gone. It is fallen apart. Please go to the Lakers. Please. I don't want Russell Westbrook because, I mean, minus the flat earther anti-Semitic thing, he's pretty much the same as Kyrie Irving. Just everywhere he goes, it's bad. Honestly, so far the best suggestion I have seen for the point guard is Tyrese Maxey. And then I go, okay, well, who's going to play the two? Because then I need a shooter. But I have made the argument, I mean, we're going back to his rookie year. I remember a very specific moment right here on air with Kevin Christian and Keith Malashevsky, my boys, and I'm going, I was making the argument about Maxey playing point guard, and I'm like, he played point guard in college. And then I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, I'm wrong. But when I saw and see Maxey's game, I do see a point guard. And he seems very coachable, too. So, in my opinion, so far, I've seen... that was Joe's suggestion. He mentioned Kyrie Irving. And look, on paper, that at least... I can't argue with the on paper aspect of that. I just go look around. Outside of that, the best option I've seen so far is Tyrese Maxey. But then we got to find who's playing two in town. And if you're strictly looking at free agents, boys and not boys, I don't see many out here. We're looking at a potential free agents list that, look at these names. They're not that great. Chris Middleton I like, but again, Chris Middleton's a player that if you can trade, now maybe you trade Tobias for a 2. You could bring Middleton in here to play that 3, because in my opinion, Tobias is a better 4 than a 3, but you have PJ Tucker here. I don't think you're paying PJ Tucker all that money to play the bench. Tobias, Melton, and Maxey should be pretty solid shooters at least. I think Maxey could handle top point guard responsibilities. I'm torn on Harden, but I tend to want him back. Russ, my man! I tend to want him back, assuming it's not the highest contract possible. Might be nice to build a squad with depth instead. Fuck if I know. So going to your depth, I'm going to start backwards and work my way up. Yes, depth has to be addressed this year. Forget, everything needs to be addressed, but this team, Daryl Morey should be fired for the product that he gave Doc Rivers in those playoffs. All season long, since the James Harden trade last year, we looked at this team and said, holy shit, they are thin. Chat, they are thin. We all said how thin they were. Last year at the trade deadline, when you gave up Curry, Drummond, and that asshole, we were like, all right, well, this is a good move, but now you need to bring in some things around it. Now you need to kind of work around this trade and fill out the roster, and they did not do that. Then in this offseason, they signed Daniel House, who, finally emerged a little bit in the Celtics season or series, albeit too late. But you had Niang, who cannot play defense. Georges Niang he's not a fucking, you can't play him in the playoffs. He's useless. He can't play defense. Daniel House can barely play offense. Maybe if you can, fusion, you got a decent player. But until then, figure that out. You traded Matisse Thybulle, who would have given you ample minutes in that Celtics series. Could have defended Brown, Tatum, anyone. You traded him for Jalen McDaniels? Jalen McDaniels! Jalen McDaniels! Who couldn't even tie Matisse Thybulle's shoelaces, much less get on the court in the playoffs. Jalen McDaniels. That's who you traded Matisse Thybulle for. You could have gotten anything in the world for him. Well, not anything. I'm not going to go out that crazy. You could have gotten much better, or you could have kept him and had another bench piece. If there is one thing that was apparent at the end of that Celtics series was that the Sixers were tired, and that's because Doc Rivers was forced, by the way, this is not an indictment on Doc, he was forced to play his starters every single minute that they could physically be out there. Every single... You went through this entire year. Montrezl Harrell never could sniff the court. Where was the coaching to coach him up? Wasn't he a sixth man of the year for Doc one year? Now he couldn't even get on the court? So, I've already had these rants, but I firmly believe that Daryl Morey and Elton Brand should have been the first two to get fired, and then Doc Rivers. Because this is Elton Brand's fault first, this is Daryl Morey's fault second, and this was Doc Rivers' fault third. And if you want to put the players, obviously it's them too. But as far as organizationally, let's not forget that Elton Brand signed fucking Al Horford when you already had Joel Embiid. Elton Brand was the one that let Jimmy Harden go. Jimmy Butler. Excuse me. I'm like, that didn't sound right. Elton Brand should be locked up in jail for the failures to put a product out on this court. But instead, much like the Flyers, which started this blood pressure spike, he got a promotion. Because, hey, you did a bad job, but we're going to give you a promotion. And you can go hire your replacement. And he's just going to turn this team into a bunch of anybody that I got in Houston, I'm going to bring back. And that only, look, I'm not Harden aside, these moves this offseason, the only one that he had past ties with that actually worked out for us was DeAnthony Melton. Who I agree, to your point, Russ, is he is a very adequate two-way player. He is a, in your words, a pretty solid shooter at the least. He is fine being here as a sixth man. But I don't think that Melton and Maxey are your 1 and 2 starters next year. Or, if they are, I don't know that we're winning anything. I wasn't planning on getting that mad this show. The Flyers really did something to me there. They really did something to me, chat. But again, going back to this list, talking about if Nick Nurse comes here, this is, again, we're talking about a world maybe sans James Harden. Is that what you want, though? Is that what you want, Fred VanVleet being your guy that comes in here? Now, if we're going strictly, we need backups. Like, if I can put Derrick Rose in instead of Shake Milton, sure. I don't know why, but when I keep seeing Kyle Kuzma as a free, and it feels like that's the name the Sixers go out and get this year. And I don't know that cuts it. I don't know. But that's what's next. Now we sit and wait. But for the Sixers, obviously signing head coach is step one. Figuring out James Harden is step two. But You can't just do the Ben Simmons thing again and just wait around and wait around. Trading Tobias Harris has to be step one as well, or step two as well. The Sixers need to move on. And again, it's not that it's Tobias Harris's fault. I've already said it. Game 7 was Joel Embiid's fault. Doesn't mean I want to ship him out of town, but it was his fault. Because at some point, the MVP has to win you a game in the series. And he didn't. James Harden won you 2 games in that Celtics series. Love you, Embiid. You're still here. I don't want you to go anywhere. I never want you to go anywhere. But something has to be done with the starting players on that court. And in my opinion, Tobias Harris, you got to go. You're the victim of that. If you came out and kept giving me steady 20 points in the playoffs, maybe I would have shut my mouth, but you didn't. You fell off after the Brooklyn series, which really is the first round when you're a top 3. Is that even a first round? Like, it's warm up. So great, you played good against the lesser competition, but I need a star. I need a dog, and I need a shooter. If PJ Tucker is going to be staying in this lineup, which he is, I need a shooter as my 3. My 3 has to be a lights-out wing shooter for the Sixers. We've been saying this for years. If we use TJ McConnell, and I hate that name, and Thibault in the playoffs, I bet we have a finals appearance or 2. Embiid's injury really did fuck them this year, though. Like you said, with our lack of depth, that one thing they can't afford. I just hope whatever coach we bring in has at the least heard of press trap foul. I'm going Saturday. To the blank. To blank on Hershey. I will be there. Got my room booked. No, AC is Sunday. Yeah. But yeah, I'm seeing Blink God damn it, you got me all confused. I'm seeing Blink Saturday at Hershey. I'm looking very much forward to it. But yeah, where are we at here? Okay, we're coming up on an hour. Right on. So, final thoughts. And I see we got Blink talk going, so that starts to get the final thoughts going. But if there was any other sports thoughts, comments, or anything that you would like to bring up, now is the time to do so. We're going to start to wrap it up. Like we were just talking about, Russ. Yeah, Saturday's Blink-182. Sunday starts GDQ, one of my favorite weeks of the year. Yeah, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I have this fear that I have the wrong date in mind, and I have to constantly look up Blink-182 tour dates. I'm constantly rechecking because I think I've made this mistake once before where I had the wrong day in mind. And the day of the concert, I realized it, and Jamie didn't have off, and it was all kinds of things. So now I just have this irrational fear that I have the wrong date. But yes, I will be on the field for Dead and Company, Citizens Bank. I figured, hey, it's their last tour, so I splurged for tickets, and I got field seats, and I'm looking. I figured, it was also I want to be on it's the National League champs. I could go be on that field. I just think it's going to be a really cool experience. So, I'm doing field seats for Dead and Company. And then I got bleacher seats for Blink Saturday. I'm looking forward to it. Concert season begins, baby. But they're my two concerts so far. I'm going to try to catch a Fish show. It's been a little bit. We're overdue for that. I am going to try to catch, my share of Umphreys. I think Tash is coming too. Tash Sultana is, I think, a Stone Pony show. So that's Jamie's girl, and I've seen her 2 or 3 times now. And man, she puts on a live show like no other. So I'm looking forward to that potentially too. Could be on the radar for summer series. But if you haven't heard of Tash Sultana, Russ, I bet you would be into her. Very different. She's kind of like, I don't know how to, like, chill hippie jammy music, but like structured. At least like on the albums, it's not like jammy like Fish would be. But live, she gets out there, like, I mean, in a good way, just like goes in space and does some weird shit. Last Dead and Company show was incredible. Took a little. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, last one was great. I've seen every show that they've done at Citizens Bank. So yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one for sure. Looking forward to doing it. Looking forward to it. But yeah, I'm just trying to think. Any other final sports thoughts that I have? I don't think we got any of them, chat. Yeah, I think, well, yeah, that's her, I think, like, big song, The Jungle. I think she closes with that, or at least she did one time, at least one of the shows that I saw. But yeah, she's my favorite thing is going, she's a one-man band. And that sometimes gets people's panties in a bunch. Where I'm like, women could be the man too. You're the one that's being sexist at that point. But yeah, I think on that time, it's about time to put a bow on this pretty little show. It has been electric, guys. And again, coming off of a Phillies win always helps. I don't know why or how, but we sparked up a little bit of a temper tantrum there towards the tail end of the show as we talked a little bit about the Flyers and Sixers. But nevertheless, here we are, calm, cool, and collected. And we'll be moving into another show. I did mention next week is GDQ. So if the Sixers hire somebody, or if there's news, we will have a show next week. Otherwise, I might take a nice little break and take a week off. Or I might do a show at a weird time or date. It might be like a morning show or something again. So next week, you got to kind of follow along. Twitch or Twitter at War Room Philly. Facebook. Facebook.com/War Room Philly. Like, follow us there. Turn notifications on at twitch.tv/War Room Philly. And if you're watching us here on YouTube, sexually molest that subscribe button and get to it. But yeah, as far as like I said, now it's time to wrap this thing on up. So guys, thank you all for tuning in, both live and on demand. It's been a fun one coming on after a Phillies win. It always is a little bit better. With that, I am Anthony Pinto, and we are out of here. Thanks, guys.